Bill, if Mark doesn't come in by, say, another minute or so, we still have a quorum with the three of us. So we could get started. And Dottie can just
Yeah,
know
okay.
when he does get in. Stu, you certainly have a lot of books there in the background. Are those all architectural books?
Yeah, I'm hoping and praying that I can keep my eyes. It's the most, my eye exercises are the best thing I do every day.
Oh. Minor brain exercises playing solitaire, so anyway.
All right. Well, there's not enough time, that's for sure. And I wish I had the same eyes I did when I was a kid.
Hmm.
But don't we all?
Mhm.
I've got to get one of those background screens like Mark.
Mhm. It's supposed to be pretty easy to do, I guess.
Yeah. I think I'll put waves in the background, palm trees.
What, no wetlands?
Wetland, yeah, the ocean.
That's a water course.
Right, okay.
This is Dan Malo. Still no Mark Parker in our waiting room, but I have noticed that a lot of the images on the screen are choppy. I don't know if there's issues with our Zoom server or what that might be, if we just have the old Woodstock internet.
I can see everybody
Well-
fine. Mine is a little grainy, but usually is. Everybody else is pretty
Yeah.
clear.
Well, we will proceed now and hopefully Mark will join us. I'd like to call to order the September 9th, 2024 meeting of the Inland Wetlands and Watercourses Agency for the town of Woodstock. And the time is 7:12 PM. We'll start with a roll call.
Marla Butts,
Stuart Peasley.
William Rowinski. And we're waiting, perhaps Mark Parker is attempting to join us. We don't have any alternates to appoint. Action on the minutes of the previous meeting, the regular meeting, August 5th, 2024.
I have three comments. Page 1 at the bottom, second line from the bottom. There will be 4 temporary crossings using bridges or corduroy were detailed. So that should say corduroy roads. See what I'm saying? Corduroy is a type of fabric.
Which page again?
Page 1, second line
Okay.
from the bottom. There will be 4 temporary crossings using bridges or corduroy were detailed. So it should say corduroy roads or corduroy crossings. Either one is acceptable. I would
Okay,
suggest
do you have a preference?
corduroy roads. Yeah. That's the first
Okay.
one. Second one is on page 2 of 4. What's the spelling of Bungie?
B-U-N-G-A-Y.
2 G's and 2 E's? Huh?
Well, it could be B-U-N-G-A-Y is one way, but the other is B-U-N-G-E-E. But
Okay.
on the street, on the road, it's B-U-N-G-A-Y.
Okay, so in this one there's an extra G. So it should be then probably B-U-N-G-E-E.
I think either one works.
Yeah, but it's got it's got two Gs right now. It should only have one regardless.
Actually, the Bungee Association is Bunggee.
Really?
Yeah, there's
Okay.
a few different spellings out there between the roads and the tax district
All
and
right. Well,
Yeah.
step that.
What's-
Forget that.
What's the fire department?
It's another spelling. It's not
Yeah.
Bunggee.
Bungay.
Yeah. And then the last one is on page 3 of 4. When it was talking there, this asterisk one that starts with not in the written wetlands agent report. Payne Road catch basin concerns. I believe replace the word catch there with stormwater management. So it reads, Payne Road stormwater management basin concerns were reviewed. And then delete the word catch in front of basins anywhere after that, because you're referring to the stormwater management basin. We didn't have discussions about catch basins. We had discussions about the stormwater management basin. So that would be to replace the word in the first line, not written in the wetlands agent's report, Payne Road stormwater management basin. Delete the word catch in both locations. I think
That's a
it's all
good catch. That's a
Yeah.
good catch, Marla.
Other than those two changes, I think it looks very good. Thanks you, Dottie, for doing a good job. So I would move, unless somebody else has any other comments.
I have to confess that I didn't look at it in great detail, so I
Okay,
have nothing to comment on at the moment.
so I'll move to approve, well, we don't have to move, but I think we've been doing that in the past, haven't we? Moving to approve the,
Yep.
okay, then I move to approve the minutes of August 5th, 2024. With,
I'll second the motion.
it didn't finish, with two edits. One on the fourth page, on the first page, second line from the bottom, add the word roads after the word corduroy. And on the third page, in the sentence, not in the written wetlands agent report, Payne Road, replace the word catch with stormwater management, and then delete the word catch wherever it shows up in that paragraph. Now, is that what you're seconding, Stu?
Yeah, I'll second that again.
Okay, we have a motion from Marla Butts, seconded by Stuart Peasley to accept the minutes from the August 5th, 2024 regular meeting with the corrections and revisions mentioned. Is there any further discussion on this motion? All those signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those in favor signify by saying aye. Any opposed, abstain? The motion passes. Okay, we'll move down to citizens' comments. These are comments for any members of the public who have looks like Mark's trying to connect right now, who might have some comments either on things that's typically not concerned with things that are already on the agenda for later. Are there any citizen comments at this time? I don't see anybody else on the Zoom. Okay, let's move on. The pending applications, number 6, we have none.
Chair, we do have two applicants that are later on our calendar that we probably should bump up. Evelyn Cole
Yes, sir.
Smith and Dirk Hansen.
Yep, I saw that. Does anybody have any objections to moving those agenda items up?
No. I have
Stuart?
No,
Okay, so Dan, knowing what's involved in both of them, is there one that you would suggest to be shorter?
Evelyn Cole Smith, this one is an agent approval type of application, work in the upland review area. She's proposing addition off the back of the garage, and I'll put that up on the screen.
Okay, well, we'll do that one first. Dirk will be with you in a few minutes.
Fine.
What number is that, Dan?
That is application 092434.
Thank you.
77 Child Hill Road. Is there any new discussion or further discussion on this? I believe there is a drain under the road that leaks out in the back there and goes in back of the garage into the field. So if I'm thinking the correct property, so protecting that, that's already been talked about in the application documents.
So,
Does anybody have any?
Marla Butt speaking.
Yeah.
I go by this property anytime I'm going up Child Hill Road. And there's a stone wall it says there's a water course there. I've never seen the water course, but on the drawing that they had, it was mapped a water course on somebody else's property. The topography is very steep as it approaches the water course, and where the addition is going on is on the flatter part of the lot. And there looks like, according to the survey plan, and I never really noticed it before, a stone wall in between. I don't see that there's any problem with this at all. Because the stone wall appears to be the property boundary line. So that water course is actually on the neighboring property. And the stone wall would kind of act as an erosion control too, because any runoff that comes from the construction site is going to have to hit that stone wall first and bleed through the stone wall. So I don't see there's any problem with it. As long as the health department has no problem with it, I have no problem with it.
Okay, on the third page of the packet, the last sentence says silt fencing will be installed on the downslope sides of all excavation areas.
Mm-hmm.
So it's been accommodated, so.
Yeah.
I
even-
would like to note that Mark Parker has joined us at 7:22 PM approximately. So Evelyn, do you have any comments? Evelyn, if you're speaking, we can't, you're muted, so,
Am I unmuted now?
yes.
Oh, good. Well, no, I don't have any further comments. I think it's a straightforward thing,
Mhm.
but we will do whatever you
Yep.
request in order to make it a viable situation.
Okay. Thank you. So Dan, you have already given agent approval for this, or?
No, this came in at the end of last week. I wasn't able to process it. So I figured I'd share this with the commission since it was gonna be, just a couple days. But this is pretty straightforward, and I'm happy to process it this week, probably tomorrow, to get it into the earliest possible edition of the villager.
Mhm. I have no
Okay,
objection.
so then,
I have no objection to
Do
him
we ha-
processing it as a wetlands agent approval. Even though he's listed it as an
Okay, do we-
IWWA at the top. It can be, do you need a motion on that, or can we just come to an agreement that it should be processed since there is no work in wetlands or water courses?
we could just come to an agreement.
Then I have no objection to it being processed as a wetlands agent approval by Dan.
This is Bill. I have no objections either. Stuart
No objections, I'm fine.
or Mark?
No objections.
Mark, you okay?
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay. So you're all approved, Evelyn. Thank you very much for coming to us, and thank you for the presentation of all your documents. It was very well done.
Thank you so much for hearing our case. Appreciate it.
Yeah, you're welcome. You're welcome. Okay, now moving on to application 09-24-35, 425 Route 198. Map block lot 57893719. Dirk Hansen, use permitted as of right for off-season beaver trapping and dam removal.
That's correct.
So, Mr. Chair, this type of activity requires a state DEP permit that is endorsed by the local wetlands agency or other town staff where appropriate. This is most appropriate with our commission. Mr. Hansen's had a nuisance beaver condition over at his property. And he wishes to trap off season. I've included, in addition to this form, his narrative with photographs that he's provided. And also at the end of the submission, the form that Deep is requesting, or that Deep requires our signature on.
So Dan, Deep is only requiring a signature for the out of season beaver trapping, correct?
Correct.
They're
correct.
not regulating the beaver dam.
No.
Okay. So I just have one question. I've seen this site. I saw it with Dan a week or so ago. And there is a beaver. It's not a great beaver habitat, to be honest with you, because there's not a lot of trees that it's even putting in a low dam that it's going to be able to catch, and to eat. And I didn't really see any active eating or testing of the bushes or trees by the beavers when we were there. So I'm not sure how long this beaver dam has been in place or whether there's one there in the past. But my question, I'm looking at the GIS for the property, and we know that the property boundary lines are not accurate, but the beaver dam looks like it might be on the neighboring property. So my question to the applicant is, do you know where the property line is in relation to the beaver dam that you want to keep removing? Is it on your property or is it on your neighbor's?
It starts on my property and goes over to the neighbors.
Okay, so when I was there with Dan, we saw that you had taken out a part of the dam that would be on your property, and that had actually diverted the flows from the historic way the water used to flow. But the question that I had was, how far were you planning on removing the beaver dam, and how were you planning on removing it?
If I can get the beaver trapped out, I'll come in with a neighbor's machine, which has a 13-foot reach, and remove as much as I can out of the courseway.
Okay,
There's two concerns here. One, the Christmas trees to the north of the waterway are been sitting in water for a considerable period of time. I have included a picture of one of the smaller ones, which is definitely off yellow. There are more each day. That shot right there, the top one. And then where the back brook comes across the back of my property, north to south, you can see where the water is starting to come up onto the areas that I am mowing. My other concern is that very shortly, it usually happens between the 15th and 22nd of September, the Lake Association opens the dam for Upper Bungie and Bungie Lake, and to drain so that people can repair their docks and remove them come Columbus Day weekend. It's been historical, and it raises Normally, the water is much lower than this because the beaver are there, they're high. You add another 9 inches of water, which is what it normally raises up to, the water will be in my backyard and the trees will be underwater.
So when Bungie releases the water, how
Yep.
far does the water, when the beaver's not there, how far does the water go up on the grassy lawn?
It doesn't. It comes up to just about the brim of the brook,
So
about where it is right now,
okay. All right,
or not quite where it is right now.
right.
And they are active at the dam because there's more and more eaten wood there every day.
Have you seen them?
Yes, if you sit on my deck and in the late afternoon, which is the barn or to the north side of my property, and look out, the brook comes down from a pond, traveling south, comes east for a period of time, and then travels south again. When it's coming east, it's right where on that bend I've seen them. Their lodging is up in that area to the north of my property. I believe the house is actually on the neighbor's property at this time.
Okay.
That's where it was the last time that we could see it in the fall.
Is there a secondary beaver dam farther up off on the northern property?
Yes, but it's up on the other side of 198. You have across from Stogie, the old restaurant, you have a pond, and it is north of that. And I think that's a separate colony because I believe I could see a house up there,
Mm-hmm.
but that's not my property, and that's such a wet area with the pond being there.
Did,
They keep-
have
they
you
seem
had
to
beavers
go-
down here before?
Yes,
When was that?
they were there about 4 years ago, 5 years ago, where I made a note of this, that they actually removed 2 trees and basil pruned 2 others and put the trees in the dam. The dam was located to the west about 100 feet.
Mm-hmm.
It was not in its present location. I've never had one in this location before.
So it's farther downstream?
No, it's further upstream.
Upstream,
So
okay.
if you come across, you can see where it
Got
comes
it.
straight across my backyard and then takes a jog towards 198.
Yep, I see
Right
that.
at that jog.
Yep, okay.
And I
And-
think we actually ripped, after they were trapped out, we actually went in and pulled it apart by hand because there's no way of getting equipment out there.
Yeah, yeah. Well, when I went out there, I could see that there were a couple of small young trees that were yellow. I wasn't sure what that was caused by, whether or not they were just trees they were small. None of the larger trees were yellowed.
Not at this point.
Yeah, and I noticed that, the land slopes up away from the brook. Only concern that I had was the material that's taken out of the beaver dam. Where were you gonna take that material? Because I don't know if there's a flood, FEMA floodplain here or not. Dan, were you able to find out if there was any FEMA mapping for this water course?
Unfortunately, I wasn't able to dig that deep
Okay.
into that.
So where are you gonna take the material you take out from the dam?
If I have to, I'll put it on a truck.
Well, don't have to. I'm just wondering if you're just gonna side cast it to the edge of the water
Basically,
course.
that was my plan,
Okay,
was to side cast it.
because you do have some land that's a little higher up, away from that.
Yep, I do.
So if there is FEMA, if there is floodplain there, we don't want to permanently have flood storage loss. Plus, we don't want to have it easier for the beavers to come in at a later time and use that embankment as their stopping off point. So I don't have any objection to the removal of the beavers, if that's what is needed to protect the trees. And I also don't have the problem with the removing of the beaver dam itself, as long as the material that's removed is placed on higher ground, that it's not placed adjacent to the watercourse bank.
That's fine.
I don't know, what do other commissioners feel about
Makes
this?
sense, makes sense to me.
I think it's a,
I'm
I
fine
think it's a
with-
good plan. I have no problem with it.
This is Bill, I'm fine with it. Just wondering, the application use permitted as of right, was that gonna be for agriculture or for something else? I mean, it is a tree farm, so, Dan, do you have any?
Well, I would put it under, conservation of soil and water. Only because that, the agricultural one is gonna be harder to stretch because you can't, alter water courses easily for that. But you can more easily
Okay.
do it if you're not altering the natural indigenous character of the wetland or water course. You could cover it under as a non-regulated use, the removal of the beaver dam. So what is the natural indigenous character of this wetland system? Historically, maybe in the colonial times, there were beavers here before, but I don't know if we're gonna go back that far. We'd be looking at it. The natural indigenous character of the system is actually a shrub swamp at this point in time, what's there. So in the wetlands that are most affected by it, and they look like they have been there for a long time like that. That's just very low-lying land. So I don't think it would alter the natural indigenous character of the wetland to remove the beaver dam as long as the material was removed to higher ground, so that it wasn't obstructing the floodplain at all.
Agreed. I agree.
So what do you think about that, Bill? Doing it as a non-regulated
That's
use,
fine with me.
conservation of soil and water. All right,
That's fine with me. I just wanted to make that clear on
Mm.
which way we're classifying it.
yeah, I think it's much cleaner to do it under as a non-regulated use. So I'll move to approve application 09-24-35 for 424 Route 198. Map 5789, block 37, lot 19. For the removal of a beaver dam, as well as the sign off for off-season beaver trapping. The removal of the dam would be covered as a non-regulated use under conservation of soil and water. That's my motion. Do you want me to repeat it?
I'll second it.
Not gonna even attempt to repeat it, but we have a motion by Marla Butts for dam removal as conservation of soil and water and for off-season beaver trapping. Seconded by Stuart Peasley. Is there any further discussion?
I would like to reserve this topic for further discussion at another time, but it is an interesting topic, and it raises several questions that I'd like to ask at a different point in time.
So I just want to make sure that the motion has that the material removed from the dam is moved to an area of higher ground. I think I said that in my motion.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Is there any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Uh,
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstain? The motion passes. Okay, Mr. Hanson, you'll be, have to probably touch base with Dan to get some paperwork. Dan, do you have any procedural thing you need to do?
He'll need to complete the state form. And then I'd be able to put my signature on it on behalf of the commission.
Do you want me to
Okay.
come in? I have a copy of it here. Do you want me to come fill it out and bring it in tomorrow morning, say 11 o'clock, and you can sign it?
Yeah, 11 o'clock is good.
Fine, I'll see you at the town hall at 11 o'clock tomorrow.
Okay, sounds good.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Commission. Have a great evening.
Thank you.
You too. Thank you. Thank you.
You're
Thank
welcome.
you, you too.
I want to take a little side detour since we're starting about talking about beavers. This is firsthand experience, just because there's not a lot of small trees for them to use, or even bigger trees, doesn't mean that they're not going to use the area. There are year-old beavers that get kicked out of the mother's den that have to go somewhere, so they sometimes try to start small ponds here and there. But I've seen in back of my house, the beaver cut down some euonymus that with a trunk about 2 inches diameter and pull them almost up an almost vertical slope 15 feet. And then another 10 feet down the other side to get into the pond. And this wasn't just one, this was numerous. And I've seen this kind of thing at other locations around town, most particularly in West Woodstock, that just because there's not a lot of young stuff immediately available, that they will still attempt to, you know, make a lodge and modify the water course. There was another point, but I'm not thinking of it right off the top of my head. Anyways.
Well, I
Sorry,
do think-
okay.
I do think there's some topics of interest that we should discuss maybe at a future time, when we have a chance. I just have some questions that don't pertain necessarily to this application, but I think they are of potential future benefit to have more understanding about this.
Okay, shall we move on? We will go back to the beginning of our new applications, reviewing application 08-24-30, 307 East Quasit Road. Kevin Bernier, agent approval for tear down and rebuild shed in existing footprint.
So this
That's,
is one of 4 that I approved administratively last month. They were activities in the upland review area. This one, Kevin Bernier application, is a tear down and rebuild of an old shed in the same footprint. And I'll pull that up on our screen. But I wanted to run through these with you. This would be a typical wetlands agent approval permit with pretty standard conditions. I did publish legal notice on this one. I should have highlighted this or I did highlight it, but it didn't translate. So Kevin Bernier is this first one here. I made that decision on August 19th. This is still under an appeals period through the 13th of the month.
So Dan, just so that the commission knows, I had a conversation with you earlier today where I suggested that this looks like boilerplate for the wetlands agent approval. And what I asked of you at that time is in the future that when you are issuing a wetlands agent approval, that you have the receipt date for the application and the receipt date for the drawings be identified in the application or in the wetlands agent approval, as well as be having it stamped on the plans. Some of the plans for the 4 wetlands agent approvals that you have on this agenda did have the plans stamped with a receipt date. This particular one does not. And the only reason why I raise that as an issue is if you get multiple drawings that come in at different times where people have changed them, you're going to want to know which drawing is the one that's covered under the approval or permit, whichever the case may be. So I'm requesting that all applications are stamped on their front page, that the drawing also be stamped, and that the drawing and the receipt date for the application and the drawing be referenced in the approval document, in a license document.
We did have that procedure in Thompson. And that's part of the reason why I want to go through all these with you, is to finesse, get these to where you are confident with what I'm doing, but that we're covering all our bases in this. So I appreciate you making note of that. And it's easy enough to stamp these drawings along with the application and reference the particular drawing in the approval in case the drawings do change, which they do. So that is going to be a consideration on all of these going forward. We do have health department approval. And let's see, an automatic submission to the watershed district in our deep forum. So this is under appeals through the 13th, as are the rest of these that we're going to go up. If you'd like me to move to the next one, I can switch up here.
You could keep going unless anybody has any further comments on this one. Oh, go ahead.
Okay, we have Sean Maloney on Rocky Hill Road. His was a pretty not this one or the last one, but there's a couple in here that are like 101 feet possibly. But I asked him for to produce an application for this one. This is for an extension, a parking area off of his driveway. I'd been out there a couple times to look at it and discuss this with him, but he settled on a 1/2-inch gravel, and we talked about the placement of a straw wattle. It is pretty flat where he's described this. If you can see on the screen there is a trapezoid at the end of the driveway. Wetlands were depicted on a original subdivision site plan with the upland review area 75 feet away. He didn't even know he had wetlands over there, but I told him what I found, and that's why we're here with an application for that. This is the older site plan that referenced an upland review area off of this flagging. And this is the location where he proposes that parking area.
Dan, how much are we paying for the legal notices?
Let me
Could you report that next month?
yeah, I've got a financial report here that
Because I
could
think
break that out.
I'm gonna suggest that I think there's that you could probably shorten up the legal notice.
Okay,
But I'll talk to you independently on that. I think
Okay.
yeah, because there's language that keeps getting repeated and that costs money.
sure.
So some of that I don't think we need to have, so.
Yeah, some of these we were looking at $29.40, $44.10, but yeah, definitely happy to cheapen that if we've got a smarter way.
Yeah, okay. I'll talk to you about that before the next meeting.
And he also notified Wyndham Waterworks. Oops. Deep. Now we have another one off of 59 Senexit Village Road. This is over by the Putnam Town line. This is a 22 by 20 addition in the Upland Review area. This one, I don't have ENS depicted on
We're
the
done.
site plan.
Sorry, Dan, we're done with this one? We're moving on to it.
Yeah, did you have questions about that last one?
No, this is the 08-24-31.
I'm on to number 32 now. Craig Andrews.
Okay.
But if you have any questions
Dan-
about any of these, go ahead.
Dan, if you're intending to share your screen, it's not shared.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It's okay.
Share. Okay. 082432. This was a 22 by 20 addition. As you can see on this markup of a site plan. This, I measured this a lot of different ways with our GIS tool. This isn't a water course. This is trees and swamp. And it's about 101 feet away. But the applicant and I felt this was still really close. There is visibility on this, as this is a walking trail outside of the property line. So anybody walking by this would say, hey, what's going on here? And it just makes sense. I believe this habitat is outside, or the property is outside of a bubble on the NDDB mapping for a protected species. While not in this property, I wanted to make sure he had all his necessary permitting, and that I couldn't make any kind of attempt to limit any impact to that wetlands or natural diversity database defined area. This has received its health department approvals. This is one that, as Marla noted earlier, I do have a stamp on it. Okay.
So I looked at the GIS mapping for this, and the garage is on a flattish part of very gently sloping part of the lot. And there's grass all around it. The grass is going to actually act as a vegetative barrier before it gets to the embankment that drops down to the wetlands. So with respect to silt fence, I don't think silt fence, as long as they're not taking the material that they're excavating out for the foundation and putting it over the back bank, as long as they're taking it somewhere else, I don't see there as being a problem here with any erosion and sediment controls, because the lawn is going to pick up most of the problems before it hits the wetlands. And it's not clear to me that he's actually could be out of the 100-foot upland review area, just looking at the topography. I'm not sure where the wetland boundary line is. Whether it's close to his property line on the neighboring property or farther away, it's not clear from the aerial photography. But that should have been a scaled map anyways that you're showing. So you should be able to scale off to where the
Yeah,
mapped
he
wetland.
did get that 20 feet from that matched up with that.
Okay,
So the map itself has been probably blown up and shrunken, but that meets that scale.
yeah. So the easiest way to make the scale is you find an existing structure there. From the assessor's information, you can find out what that length is on that map. You measure it on the map. You know what the true length is, and that'll actually give you a ratio So you can actually figure out what the scale of whatever the map is that you're looking at now, based upon the measurement that you take of that house. But that's, we can talk about that another time. I'll show you how to do that.
And there was a fourth, Sukesh Hara on 62 Beaver Dam Road. He had a dilapidated deck in his backyard, which he is building on existing piers in the same dimension. And this is actually, he has done most of the work, but he was caught in this work. He thought he could just rebuild this without building permits. The building official told him otherwise and then brought him into the wetlands permitting fold. But he's been very responsive and to all my requests. While they're still doing any work over there, they're putting down a hay bale, or we'd also talked about a wattle. But we didn't want to disturb, dig a trench in the yard for a silt fence that when the yard was nice and established.
Wattle's probably the easiest thing for him to use, because
Yeah.
hay bales you're supposed to trench in. So wattles make a lot of sense.
So this one, they threw me for a little loop. I was able to prove the deck, and then they came in a couple days later to the building department because they need to rebuild their front porch as well. And the front porch is in the regulated area, upland of Lake Bungie. So I had already approved this porch, this back deck. I don't know if is the logical approach to modify this approved permit to also include the front porch?
Are they
Or should
building
I?
it now? Are they redoing the front porch now?
So once the back deck is complete, they only have access to the house right now, either through the front or through the back. When the back deck is completed and they have access to the interior through the back deck, then they propose to do the work on the front porch.
So there's two ways. Technically, when you're increasing the scope of the work, it shouldn't be covered under an existing license, which a wetlands agent approval is a license. But this kind of work that's here, that's coming through, could have come through as maintenance and enjoyment of residential home if they'd come before they started the work. And there's no fee in that.
Yeah.
But only the Wetlands Commission can render that decision. The front deck, if they're not in a rush, could come through as a maintenance and enjoyment of residential home.
Okay.
The fact that they started the deck and didn't get their building permits, that kind of thing, that's kind of like, that's the penalty for not doing the work. But when somebody comes in ahead of time and just wants to replace an existing structure without really any substantial modifications to earth moving work, and it's just simply construction that's on the house, then they should come in for a use permitted as of right, maintenance and enjoyment home, and save them the cost of the fee. And there's
Okay.
no requirement for a posting of a legal notice either. It's just covered.
Well, I'll discuss that with them and see if that's where they'd like to go. I think that's a logical approach.
As long as the building inspector accepts it, because I suspect the building inspector wouldn't issue the building permit till they got something from the Wetlands Commission. Is that correct?
That was my inclination with
Yep.
that. But I can discuss this also with the building official.
Okay.
I do want to make note that Jose Macho has just joined the Zoom. Jose is interested in picking back up the application that he withdrew earlier in the year for his shoreline work. I did attach the documents that he presented last time at the bottom of our meeting page. And I'm asking the commission to add this as an agenda item to be received for review at the October meeting.
Can you show us the document?
Yes.
Now, is it on the bottom of the posted agenda?
Oh, shoot. It didn't attach. I'm sorry.
The attachments at the way at the bottom.
Okay, okay. So I issued this a new permit number or application number, 092436. And he made this request today, so I'm kind of just whipping it together. But this involves work in the wetlands and could not be reviewed at this meeting, but I'd like to receive it.
Are we, I'm confused. Are we
Wanda,
off, are we off 08-24-33?
Wanda,
We are on so we just finished up with 33. And
Okay. I can't keep up with it, Dan.
I know, flying through. So if you'll notice on the meeting page on the town website in the meeting documents, Jose Macho
Mhm.
is resubmitting his request for shoreline repair.
Well,
And
all that got posted was his email. Oh, I see. Oh, okay, wait a minute.
Yeah, there's two items.
I got it. Okay. Okay. So you want us to consider this as being received? When was it received? It was received today? Sorry, it has to come a day, 24 hours before the meeting in order to be considered received, but it can be received at next month's meeting. It has to come in at least 24 hours in advance of the meeting in order to be received statutorily.
Okay.
Okay, has to come in the day before the meeting. If it comes in the day of the meeting, then it's gonna have to wait to be received at next month's meeting. Now, this is work actually in the water, edge of the water? Yes?
Yes, placement of riprap
Mhm.
and the commission had seen this earlier in the year, same documentation.
Yeah.
I don't know if since we have Jose on the call, if you would like him to produce any more items. He did originally submit this to Wyndham Waterworks and they gave their blessing with it.
What's,
So just for I have a question. I'm looking at the photograph, which shows the stone, if you want to call it riprap, but it's a stone on the slope. And but in the description on the application, it says maintenance repair of lakeshore embankment due to soil erosion using riprap stone, riprap stone. It should be riprap stone. Extend embankment height approximately 3 foot by 50 feet long. What does that mean, height? I mean, is it a vertical height or a sloped height or what are we, that's why I'm confused here.
would you like me to answer that?
Sure.
Yes. So the picture you're looking at now is the lake in the drawdown state. The stones and whatever was there, I suspect was initially constructed by Joe Campert, but you can see the erosion issues along the line. Specifically to your answer is we want to increase the height approximately 2 feet because we have a very steep embankment that's further causing erosion and coming down. That part of that was caused by a recent construction project, and there was sediment fencing all over it. So we're trying to level out that property.
Let me just ask and interject. Sorry to interject. So when you say height, are we talking about the thickness of that existing slope? Or are we talking about more something like a wall?
Almost like a wall.
And
okay,
so
so,
the top of that wall would be level with what we're looking at in the photograph.
No,
And the,
No, the
3
top,
feet.
what you see is a shoreline where the tree trunk, the dead tree had been removed. So if
Okay.
we use that as a basis, then we would, yeah, that's correct. So that is the shoreline when the lake is at full height. What I'm asking is that the riprap would be included height 2 feet up to make the embankment less steep.
So
And
would
the
that be like,
riprap would prevent any further erosion, which goes quite a distance into that embankment.
could you, I would suggest, Jose, just to sketch out a quick sections
Okay,
detail.
I can
That
do
would
like
help lot.
a profile on that, yeah. But
Yeah.
it would just be, so the riprap would not extend all the way down to where the lake level is at that point. We're just simply adding some stone to basically increase the height of the embankment, as well as further preventing any erosion that's already done some considerable damage into that embankment.
I think I
So-
understand, but a drawing would really clarify things. That'd be
So,
great.
since we need a cross-section, a typical cross-section to show, what the change in elevations, change of grades might be. Also, I think what you need to do is include the estimated cubic yardage of stone that you're gonna use.
I have that. I didn't
Okay,
last time. You had asked that, Marla, before, yes.
Yeah, should be in the application. So just amend the application to include
Okay,
the amount of cubic yardage. I think you can probably add that as a narrative.
Yeah.
Because Dan, I don't see any of the attachments that usually are here.
Yeah, I don't have a narrative on this.
Yeah.
and-
So it's not really ready to be received anyways. So we could look at this as like a pre-application review, but make those minor modifications so that it can be accepted at October's meeting. You're probably going to end up doing this. No, you wouldn't be able to get any approvals anyways before November. If it's received in October, we can't render a decision till November, but then that's the beginning of November. The ground's still not frozen. The lake will still be drawn down. So that because last month we had a discussion about somebody who did some modifications along the shoreline, and there were local residents that said, oh, they bumped out, they made land. And
yes,
we had to
that's
go,
right.
yeah, we had to go through all the aerial photography and stuff like that. We don't want to have to go through that again, so we
Now,
want to,
that was a very different circumstance, and
Yeah.
basically those that complained, I raised that because I'm a board member, and apology, we had a board meeting tonight on the lake, which is why I wasn't able to join earlier. But just to clarify that, there were residents who had lived there for some period of time that believed that that initial shoreline prior to the home construction was much smaller. And
Mhm.
looking at some of the Google Maps, it kind of presumed that there was a shoreline, but your basis and decision was based on a topographical 1A that was,
2016, yeah.
yeah. But some of the earlier shoreline views and photographs kind
Mhm.
of suggested otherwise. That was why it was
Yeah.
brought up.
But we couldn't prove it, so because.
No, I understand.
Yeah.
I'm we're not pointing fingers or in any way.
Yeah.
Other than we were just trying to get back to some of the residents who believed there was an encroachment. In this case, for my own personal property, which I'm representing, it's just simply I've got erosion problems. I'm trying to prevent that, as well as extending an elevation slightly as a result of earlier construction and sediment fencing that had distorted the whole ground.
Mhm. I think that typical cross-section will help us understand with the total cubic yardage. We'll be
Okay,
able to understand what's
I will
going
get
on.
that to Dan.
Yeah, I just want to affirm also with Stuart Peasley's request in that line 4D, purpose of the property, activity, etc. Yeah, edit that whole section and make sure that you put RIP, RIP, RAP, RAP. That's the proper terminology.
Riffraff is what lives under bridges.
Yeah, right.
I grew up with,
homeless-
okay, well, but I wasn't sure of the spelling of that
It's
term,
okay.
you know.
It's
I'm used to
easy.
just throwing rocks.
Yeah, well, a lot of people call silk fence.
Yes, yes.
Right, yeah, yeah,
Well, riprap and riffraff are two different meanings.
yeah, right.
I grew
So-
up with that in school, so it's okay. But thank you.
All right, Dan, you got a direction?
Yep, and this will be on our October agenda for receipt.
Mhm.
Great, I will get that to you. Thank you very much.
Welcome.
Thank you.
So
I
that's
just-
it.
I would like to share a little story, just a quick aside. When I was still working for the DEP, and we were interviewed by a Hartford Current reporter, and we were explaining how that part of the problem is with the hypoxia in Long Island Sound is that there's excessive phytoplankton and other planktons that grow and when they die they cause the hypoxia. Well, when the reporter published the interview, he wrote Fido, Fido, phytoplankton.
I thought it was going to be fighter plankton.
Yeah, no.
So Mark, if I may share with you, in one of my previous lifetimes, I did inspection work for United Illuminating in their energy program and managed a lot of the contractors. My point being is that one of the guys I did for worked for Yukon Stores and was doing all the Long Island Sound environmental water studies. And what he told me is that at the mouth of the Housatonic, there's enough lead in there to wipe out New York City from all the mills and from all the Danbury based Mad Hatters that all floated down the Housatonic and dumped right in the Sound. He says there's more lead down there than most people don't understand. It's buried under silt. We monitor it. We continue to monitor it. We said there's enough lead down there to kill off half the city.
It was mercury.
Mercury. I'm sorry, rather mercury. That's yes, it was mercury. Yes.
Yeah, if it was lead, it
Yes.
would have come from the Stratford shooting range.
Right. Yeah, that was the other one, right?
Stratford does that. Stratford has a serious asbestos problem that's everywhere, not just asbestos plant, but what people don't understand is when I-95 had a above ground toll booth, all the trucks would stop and the wind blew all the asbestos dust from all the trucks and car traffic all over Stratford on a top layer of soil. People trying to sell property, you go down half an inch and it's all asbestos until they close the toll booths out. But anyway, you're right, it was mercury, not lead. I had to get lead out of my shoes, I think, or something, but anyway. But anyway, thank you.
Yep.
You're welcome.
So moving on to correspondence, there's a couple items that came in today.
What?
There's
Did you want to, sorry, Dad.
oh
Dad, we, number 4, there, the 62 Beaver Dam Road.
yes.
Did we look, did you review that one?
Yeah, we can run through that again.
Just to make sure we touch everything on the agenda.
Yep. Yeah, so this was the back deck and the
Oh, okay, that was, okay.
yeah, the late addition front porch. But they had gotten
Okay,
Jose's
I'm
blessing
sorry,
there.
that's that.
Oh, no worries.
Dan, have they gotten
All
you a copy of Adobe Acrobat yet?
No.
They need to put that, even if we have to pay for on the Wetlands Commission's fund. You
I would-
need a
I would
copy of Adobe
love that.
Acrobat so you can edit these PDFs. Because I noticed that you kept changing the page and it just changed all the documents because you're not using, should have been set up with Adobe correctly. so that you wouldn't have to be changing it when you're viewing it in Zoom.
Yeah, I have to use a bunch of online free softwares to merge all these, and you only get like one use on each of them, so it's a shell game to kind of put all these documents together.
Yeah, but
Where with Adobe, it's
the
snap.
town should purchase it's a subscription service now. They
Yeah,
used to have it on disc, and I have, my copy at home is on disc, but I think they don't sell them on disc anymore. You have to get a subscription. You should have a copy, a subscription to Adobe Acrobat.
I will start the process if you know, I need a vote and a letter from you guys. We'll make it happen if that needs to happen. But I agree. It's a very useful. It would save a lot of time in the preparation of these meetings. So today, around 2:30, 3 o'clock, Eric Hansen, one of our timber harvesters we see from time to time, emailed me a couple addendums to applications that the commission saw last year, and I haven't had much opportunity to pick them apart, so I wanted to look at them with you. Let's see, this first one is so we had a Wyndham Land Trust application, and I'll let the narrative have everybody have time to catch up with this narrative here.
Was this 09/09/24 or?
That's the receipt date. When you get modifications for sites, you should put in the file number.
Yeah, let's see.
Like
This was
like Jason Scranton's letter, you should have referenced the permit number for that.
okay.
You're just referencing the date that it came in or the date that it's being.
The 09/09/24, that's the date that it came in, referencing permit 0 or timber harvest
Okay.
022303.
Yeah, okay.
Okay,
And this was the Rosenfield property next to the Wyndham Land Trust property.
mhm.
There, looks like there's two wetlands crossings that were probably not originally on the plan to get to the green areas.
Well, you don't bridge with mats. You said they will be bridged with mats. No, you either put a bridge in or use mats. Because the water will flow through and over the mats.
Well, then what would you put? Would you say lay down mats
Yeah,
or?
You lay
Yeah,
down
okay.
mats. It's like
So, so the word should be lay down mats, not
Right.
bridge. Yeah, bridge
right,
with, right, yeah. Lay down mats,
yeah,
got it.
it's similar to a corduroy road, but it's using mats.
Procedurally, is this just a staff modification to the timber harvest, or would you guys like to see another timber harvest?
Technically, they should have come in. My opinion is, anytime anybody increases the scope of the work in wetlands or water courses, that requires a new permit or a new approval of some sort. That if it's just modifying something that's in the existing footprint, that's in the existing activity is basically the same, you're just making some adjustments to like positioning of a building or, cocking it at a slightly different angle, that's a modification of a permit. But when you're actually increasing the work, increasing the footprint, increasing the scope of the work, that really needs, in my opinion, needs a new approval. So then you have what was approved first, and then you have what was approved second. So I'm assuming what's in green is what he wants to do in addition to what? Is that what that means?
Newly marked
Yeah.
acres, yeah.
That's what the legend says.
Yeah,
So what you're saying, Marla, is it's basically should be amended to
Yeah.
show,
no, he should apply for a new timber harvest for the green areas.
okay, so
Get a
there's,
second one.
So an amendment is not possible for,
No, because he's increasing the scope of the work. He's got 2 new crossings that he didn't have before. He's got harvesting in areas that he didn't have before.
and it's described as bridged with mats is not accurate.
Right.
Yeah, I see 2 new crossings here.
Yep. One to the south and one to the northwest, near the pond.
So in my opinion, that would be enough grounds for reviewing
app-
it.
Yeah, a new application.
Yeah.
For timber harvest.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll reach out to him about that in the morning. I've got another email from him regarding permit or timber harvest 1123-02. And this was the Was property.
My map's not loading. I don't know what's happened.
It'll come.
It'll come. I just got mine.
Okay. Again, the green is the new, should be in the legend,
Purple says phase 2.
phase 1. Okay, so it's the pink then.
Yeah,
Well, he didn't have that in the first application, right? So
the green is always in the first one.
green was always in the first one. Okay, so yeah, then I would concur with Marla that he should submit now a second one for the purple areas.
So, question. The original crossing of where the landing is, the point of access, that always was the point of access, wasn't it? Was that in the original application? Was that the point of access? So he was already crossing that wetlands? That's not a new crossing. That access road was already approved for the green harvest area. So what is the new regulated activity? I mean, or new activity in wetlands and watercourses?
So an expansion of the treatment area.
Yeah, but that doesn't necessarily mean he's expanding it in wetlands or upland review area.
Yeah.
So other than the little lower west, southwestern corner of the purple area, that looks to be the only new work in wetlands. Everything else is maybe upland review area.
Maybe not. Where his cursor is there now, there is
Yeah.
a pond there next to the road.
That was already-
And there's,
Wasn't that covered under the original? Isn't that the access point from the original?
I would have to look at it. I mean, that's the only driveway to get into the
Yeah.
that section of property, so.
Yeah.
That was, let's see.
So if he were to amend it so that he wasn't in upland, he wasn't in the wetlands in the southwest corner and shrunk that purple area down so that he wasn't in the wetlands that were mapped by NRCS, then we would, then you could include it because it really wasn't any new work in wetlands or watercourses, unlike the one before, which had two new crossings. He's not actually doing any new cutting in wetlands or not doing any new watercourse crossings, if that access road was the one that was there before. The only place where he's got it is down on the southwest corner. Yet she can just drop that off, and then it should be covered as a modification of the original approval.
I'm loading up that application that was approved.
Mhm.
And,
Yeah, I just did too, from the December meeting. Yeah, it's there. Yeah, it was already there.
Yeah, so I would tell him if he amends that portion, so he's not showing any cutting in the wetland, that could be a modification of the original approval, because there's no new work in wetlands or water courses. Correct? That's what it looks like to me.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that next to 169 there, there was access point.
Mm-hmm,
If he's not working in the blue area, then
mm-hmm,
that's fine, so.
yep. Yeah, so he just needs to amend that lower southwest corner, take that area out that's in the wetlands. And he can have it as an extension. Otherwise, if he keeps it in, he's gonna have to come in for a new harvest. The southwest corner. No. Go to the left
To
of
the
no,
left.
the other side. The other side,
Alright.
right down there, right there.
Okay,
That's where, if he takes that out, then he's
Just,
not doing any new work in wetlands or water courses.
okay,
And that's what the timber harvest thing goes for. It doesn't talk about use in the upland review area. It only talks about work in wetlands and water courses. Which is kind of interesting.
yeah,
Those blue
ask-
areas are wetlands, correct?
They're the wetlands that NRCS has identified, which for timber harvest purposes, we've accepted those.
Okay,
Because timber harvest typically, unless they're going in cross water courses and stuff, they typically aren't gonna cause a problem, unless you got vernal pools. And you cut all the trees around the vernal pool, that can adversely affect the vernal pool. But they're not doing that, they're doing selective cut, correct? That was my recollection. Yeah, regeneration treatment. Thinning. And they were thinning in shelter wood in the southern portion or the eastern portion.
yeah,
So Dan, just see if you can get him to amend his request to take it out of that wetland area.
okay,
And he doesn't need a new application
for that one.
for that one. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I'll reach out to him. I probably just drew it conveniently with the parcel line,
Mm-hmm.
but we'll get clarification on that, and
Mhm.
if he wants to keep it that way, should it require?
Come back in.
Yep.
For that cutting in the wetlands. He'll get an approval for it. I mean, I don't see why not, but technically that's what it is. Because if we see, he's only got a small amount, but somebody else could come in and have a huge substantial increase in the footprint of work in wetlands and water courses. And you've already set a precedent if you said it's okay for this little amount. So you don't want to say it for a little amount. You want to keep everybody on the same, running by the same rules.
Yep. Well, I'll reach out to him in the morning.
Well, in the original permit that he put in, application that he put in last November, December, he said he didn't say anything about regeneration. He just said clear cutting.
Did he say clear cutting?
Yeah, I'm looking at it.
No, I can't see it. I don't have it up, so.
Oh, okay, yeah. Yeah, yeah, on page 1, estimated cutting, whatever, blah, and then on page 2, reset succession to create young forest habitat, prepare area to be treated for invasive plants, clear cut with reserves.
Very
Removal,
little, he had
removal
very
of,
little work in wetlands, though, if I recall correctly.
yeah,
That was mostly in the upland area.
right. Removal of trees in upland review area, that's what he checked off, yeah.
Yeah. Which those typically aren't a problem as long as
Yeah,
you don't have a pollution
But-
issue.
but it said timber harvest treatment, clear cut with reserves.
Mhm.
So this second phase 2 is worded a little bit differently than, straight clear cut. So,
Mhm. So Dan, are you gonna go to the next item?
Yep, so more correspondence, okay, Jason Scranton provided us, a letter, stating that they were not able to have that as-built completed by today's date. But he was told it should be ready for the October meeting, and, he will notify us and the first selectman of any, changes to that schedule.
I don't see any
Uh,
problem with that. To be honest, I was surprised if they could do a turnaround in 30 days.
Hmm.
So, that. I think that's okay. Bill, I don't think it needs a motion. I think we just have to agree that it's acceptable that it comes in next month.
Fine with me.
Um, Other correspondence, Delia, sent around a flyer for, Woodstock, Plan of Conservation and Development. These are the next few workshops. They're on the, first Thursday of the month. We had just met last Thursday. But I told her that we'd be adding this to our agenda for tonight's meeting for a short discussion. And I wanted to see what the commission, would possibly like to see in terms of any amendments, if you're able to go through that document. I think one issue that we've discussed this past year is, the dirt road stormwater runoff and, quality, of the environment alongside of our town roads. I mean, there's, it could be a simple sentence to kind of squeeze into the document, which I'm happy to flesh out, but, I wanted to get the commission's or the agency's, opinion on other, ideas that could, be incorporated. They did, wide surveying, I think at this point, with maybe about 100 responses, and, they have an activity, put the money where you want it to go, in terms of topics, and environment has been dead last. People
That's
are
why it's on December 5th.
Yeah, right.
That's fine. I fully intend to review the POCD and provide individual comment. But I would like to see what you come up with
Okay.
as to, from the commission's point of view. I'm concerned about the changes that are gonna happen when FEMA comes out with a new flood mapping. That's gonna make some changes in how we do business with respect to people doing work in the 100-year floodplain, and those maps are gonna be digitized. Thompson had to go through this, and I think it should be reflected in the Plan of Conservation and Development. Also, I think there is a disconnect between what's on the subdivision regulations and in the zoning regulations as to what constitutes a wetland or water course, how they are identified. I took a quick look, and I can't remember if it was the subdivision regs or it was the zoning regs. They said that it could be either the NRCS mapping or a delineation by a soil scientist. And we know that the NRCS mapping is pretty gross. I mean, it's just for guideline purposes, and you really need to have, if you're gonna do a subdivision or you're gonna do a site plan that goes for review under zoning, it really should be, the wetland should be identified by a qualified soil scientist, and that is not in their regulations now. And I don't know if the Plan of Conservation and Development should make a reference to coordination between the responsibilities of the land use commissions with respect to how they approach their regulation.
I think that, in my view, the plan of conservation development is really more of it's not intended for outlining or guidelines for regulations, but it's really just more of a framework or an outline to give a direction. And that raises a really good point, though. What it is that really needs to be a concern is the difference between natural resources and cultural resources. And the way, right there, the way it's grouped, natural and cultural resources, they're two entirely different subjects.
Mm.
And the natural resources really have to be exclusively considered. And especially when we start talking about subdivision and zoning regulations, because there are people that I've heard and really are wanting to make differences to the zoning regulations, which have been entrenched for decades, 5, 6, 7 decades. And that's going to take some time. So meanwhile, natural resources has their own, they're not going by our time, they're going by their own time. And I think that's different. The cultural resources go by societies and social time. Natural resources goes by nature's evolution. And I think that's it's hard to put them together. Am I making myself sound somewhat confusing or clear?
No, but the fact that natural resources are affected by cultural activities, by human activities. And so there is some linkage between natural and cultural resources because of, not resources, but the cultural attitude towards the natural resources can affect how those natural resources are modified or create problems. And
Well,
I don't know enough about the plan of conservation and development. I'm gonna take, in the next month or so, I'm gonna take and do a deep dive and read it and see if there's places where I think they could have some better clarification.
Yeah, I think a lot of it is needs. Anyway, it's a different subject, but the natural resources I think should be heightened, and I'm just concerned about bunching it,
Mhm.
because it's too easy to put cultural resources as a priority,
Mhm.
and I think that and the wetlands has an opportunity to make that point, is how precious this is as a resource. And it's very easy for people to not consider that.
So maybe natural resources should have been under housing and development. Because that's where they're most affected.
Could be, yeah.
Unless
That's what I was starting to get around to,
Yeah, good point.
is
Because
that,
natural resources is considered, well, it's just a hiking trail or a view from the roadside of what, the landscape looks like. But it's far more significant, as you all know. And without the value of the wetlands being conveyed to people, people just see wetlands as an annoyance and something that they have to navigate.
Mhm.
But in fact, it's far more important. And as a commission, we have that duty or obligation, I think, to convey that significance, how precious it is to the environment. That's just my 2 cents.
because to me, yeah, but along those lines, kind of got it. There's two major things that we have in town. One is that for the most of the town, we don't have any town sewer. And for most of the town, we don't have town water. So if you don't have water that you can use on your site, your property's worthless, pretty much, unless you have a big sophisticated filtration system or a treatment system. And the way you keep that water clean is by preserving your wetlands.
Yep.
So that should be kind of right up front there, that, that the wetlands are important to property values. You don't, if you don't have the wetlands to recharge and clean the waters, then you have nothing.
And to your point, that's a great point, because what the impetus is on some of these, particularly with housing and development issues, is that people are interested in making and getting away from the 2.5 acre lot size, which I can understand. on the one side, but on the other, it will have an impact. So, we're on the cusp of, major change, and I think that it is important to be able to represent what you're saying, the value of that resource. People don't realize that, Bill, what you just said.
Yeah,
And certainly infrastructure also, all of our roads and bridges, and we've had a lot of meetings and work discussions about, the dirt roads and even the regular roads in town and the impact it's been having on, the water runoff and so forth. And so, I think it's, it could be lumped together with the infrastructure and the housing development thing, so.
And
Yeah.
should the plan of conservation and development have any kind of reference to climate change? Because we're finding that the hydrology is changing. That the frequency of intense storms has increasing. So rather than having these nice long 2 or 3 day storms with gentle rain, we're having these episodic events of spot flooding. And I think that's what happened when Payne Road went out back in 2007. Somebody had told me that there was a flood back then. I wasn't in town at the time, so I don't know. But Muddy Brook really flooded its banks a lot. And that was just a very localized storm. And that's part, I think, of what our weather patterns are changing. And I think maybe the plan of conservation and development should recognize that the storms that we used to have are not the same storms that we're having now. And that we need to take that into consideration.
Well, we've got a good point. We've got to anticipate that trajectory of change.
Mhm.
It's not going to get lighter.
Mm.
Yeah, I know there's a statewide hazard mitigation plan, and I know there's a lot of regional and other like shoreline communities, shoreline towns have developed hazard mitigation, plans, along with their POCDs. So, that might be something to consider, and having the climate change issue addressed in a hazard mitigation plan.
Mm. Does Woodstock even have a hazard mitigation plan?
I don't know. I don't think so.
Who would that fall? Who would that fall under?
An emergency management, probably.
Right.
And I don't know
do
who
they
it
have-
is in Woodstock that does emergency management.
So that's something to find out. I think there's some other things too with regards on October 3rd, the survey results, business, agriculture, and agro-tourism. I mean, agro-tourism is only one part of the tourism industry going on, and tourism industry is what's generating change, the same that we're going to see with nature. That's going to generate the cultural resource part of it. Tourism is going to be growing, and not just agro-tourism. And I also see the agriculture. We got a spelling error right next to it.
Galulature.
Galulature, yeah. So, it's just, I think it's important for us to really get these points across, because it's a, wetlands looks like just a regulating agency, but yet in fact it's a resource that could really help educate the community as to the significance of the topics that we've reached. And yeah, so I'm happy to help out if we want to put anything together in some kind of a presentation. I could work with Dan, Marla, anybody else that wants to, just put an outline together of points that would really make nobody's going to pay attention if we don't say anything.
So Dan, would it be, or I guess, Bill, would you have any objection to having under next month's administrative business, the plan of conservation and development, initial comments So then Dan could generate the language he was thinking of generating, and if the rest of us have a chance to review the plan of conservation development, come up with some general ideas so that we can start to develop an outline.
That would
I
be an
attended-
excellent idea.
I attended two of the interactive sessions that Delia created. And, you know, they were okay. They're okay. I think they could be better. And I think there should be more gravitas, and that's what we can do. They've really only touched on it very lightly. So I think it has whatever time we can contribute, that would be really beneficial.
Stu, do you know if those were recorded?
Yeah,
Were they, was it like a Zoom setting? Was it,
the first one I went to, no, first one was not. The second one was at planning and zoning, and it was. Delia's got them.
so Dan, could you acquire those recordings and forward at least the link to how we might listen to what Stu said was a good, you know, good session, so we can see what they were talking about?
Sure. So the POCD kickoff that planning and zoning held at their first Thursday meeting in August was recorded, and so is the one that they had this past Thursday on September 5th, the demographics update. I'll get those links in an email to you guys. I'm pretty sure they have been posted in the sidebar on the planning and zoning webpage. But I'll get the links around.
So you think those are YouTube recordings? Because town doesn't post Zoom recordings, they post YouTubes.
Yeah, it might be posted up to the YouTube page. I'll confirm that and get those links to you, but I know both meetings were recorded.
Thank you.
You're welcome. They have Delia and Amy Monahan also have hosted a few other informational sessions around town. I don't know if those turned into Zoom meetings or were recorded, but I know they tried to get you know, something at the Grange and you know, in other areas around town geographically to try to get as many citizen participants. But I will get whatever we have recorded on the town side of things to you guys.
Thanks.
Some other correspondence that we had from Deep: municipal funding opportunities and announcements. There was something coming up here. Some webinars. There's a geospatial series that look like it might be interesting. But if anybody wants to go, if one of these are in person and anybody wants to go, we can work that out. If there's a fee for any of these, we can also work that out if you're interested. And this, and I believe you can also sign up for that Deep newsletter if you're interested in getting that on a regular basis. Deep also sent us the summer torrent newsletter, which is I believe the floodplain newsletter. Yes, exploring floodplain management issues. Some of this is a little over my head. I don't really read through these, but you know, I'm trying to glean some more knowledge on this subject. But you can also subscribe to this email if this newsletter if you'd like. I did get us a financial report. It kind of doesn't really tell us much. We are in a new fiscal year, so we do have a lot of unexpended funds still there. And our expenses thus far have just been notices to Stonebridge Press for our decisions that have been rendered. So there is
When you check on the, sorry for interrupting, but when you check on the Adobe Acrobat, make sure you only get the Adobe Acrobat because they'll try to bundle other
Mm-hmm.
okay.
things in and it gets very expensive.
Yeah, like they'll try to get you an Adobe Acrobat Pro.
Yeah,
I got the home version. Oh, and that works just fine. We don't have much money in our accounts, though.
No, they don't give us much to work with.
What happened to our supplies?
I think
Where'd they go?
I
That's all
asked.
we had?
I asked if these were our lines, and these were our lines. I
Okay,
think
so you're gonna
um,
have to ask the finance or the selectman's office, how do we go, do they have a special account for computer software that
Okay.
we have to compete against others for?
you might just talk with Crystal. She might be able to
Yeah.
give you access. They probably already have it.
somebody might
Yeah.
have a.
They'd have to buy a license if they're
Yeah.
gonna store it on a machine, on a particular machine.
I know our supplies and our legal are communal, and I believe they come under the land use office. Legal, at least anyway, comes under the land use office budget. But I will confirm that these are all the lines we have. Because I just vaguely remember us when we prepared our budget for this fiscal year. I thought there were more lines to choose from.
This is just the expenditure report, so what you need to find is the budget,
Okay,
the actual budget. Where is the budget for the Inland Wetlands Commission? The approved budget,
okay.
because you're only getting the expenditures here. You're not getting necessarily, it should show everything, I would think, but
I think last year they cut everyone pretty
Okay.
significantly.
yeah.
I'll look into that with Karen.
Yeah, Karen would have the approved budget. I would think though that it's posted somewhere on the website.
I should I mean I'll have the one that we prepared at the end of the.
No, but that's not approved. I
Yeah,
mean, it's
yeah.
whatever got approved through the town meeting. So, I would think that would be under government, that would be the finance office.
Yeah.
Departments, finance department. I would think the approved budget should be there. Budget survey, annual budgets. Got on their list, so. Where's the approved budget for this year? I don't see it. Oh, there it is. Fiscal year 24 general government budget. It's on there. It's on the website. And that was approved June. Oh, no, this is the one that ended June 24. 2024. That's not the right one. That's 23-24. Yeah, so you have to find out from her where the approved budget is for this fiscal year. It's not posted on the website. I don't see it here.
Okay, I'll check into that with Karen, just so
Yeah.
we have an idea of what we have and what we can work with. And
Yeah.
I think a good first step with the software is, like Stu said, maybe check with Crystal first. And
Mhm.
then then put the request in if it isn't something that they can do very quickly.
Mhm.
So we jumped around a little bit on the agenda. We covered the storm water basin on Payne Road. Jason will be getting us hopefully an as-built for the next meeting. I have an agent report, which and down in the attachments on the meeting page, which I'll try to share on the screen and simultaneously read. Some of this we've come up with through in the meeting here. We're up to permit number 092436, indicating 36 permit applications in 2024. Last year we had 28 total. In terms of permit numbers over the past 10 years, the average of that is also 28. There's been since the COVID years, we've been hovering at like 40 something applications a year. But if you go further back, there's been busier times. It seems to be a cyclical, probably with bigger economic trends.
I'm gonna make a
Uh,
suggestion to you, Dan, regarding the
Yep.
numbers of permits.
Sure.
In the older years, our wetlands agent was the building inspector. And he made decisions about things that he didn't necessarily feel should come before the commission. So you might see that there was less in the years when Terry Bellman was here. And then when after Terry Bellman left and a new building inspector came in, who is not our wetlands agent. So now there was, and of course, the building inspector who works in town now came from Thompson. He lives in Thompson. So he knows what Thompson was like. And so I think that you're seeing more because there's more linkage between the wetlands office and the building office requiring clearance through the wetlands commission, that there's not that one person basically calling all the shots, which it was when
Yeah.
Terry was here. I like Terry. He made a lot of good decisions, but I suspect that there were a lot of things that he just said, no, this isn't worth bothering with. So that may be why, and you're seeing a lot of small things like decks that are being replaced in the Upland Riviera, which we didn't get too many of those before.
Okay.
So that may be the reason why you're seeing the numbers change. It may not have to do with increased building activity. It may have more to do with the manner in which they're being identified.
Yeah, I concur. And I think that's good. I think it kind of gets people into a culture of asking, checking in with the Wetlands Commission rather than finding out after the fact, or not asking, or having their project on our radar at all. Paul is a stickler, not just with wetlands approvals, but zoning approvals. And it's helping, me, keep more attention on things and the activities going around. But I do have,
Yeah.
wonder where all the files are, for a certain, era of time when the decision making was a lot quicker. And sometimes a lot of things didn't make it to the commission. But I cut you off, Bill?
Well, I was just gonna add that he's pretty good about the Historic District Commission also.
Oh, yeah,
It's like, don't even come see me, till you get through them first.
yeah. Yep, them too. So we discussed Mr. Hanson, we discussed Jose Macho, we discussed the 2 timber harvest addendums. We discussed Jay Scranton. The PLCD updates, we wanted to know when this was due. Delia told me it's due March of 2025. She says it's going to be difficult to have it done by March 2025, but that an extension request is an easy thing and a possibility with our PLCD updates. I'd still like to have whatever contribution that the agency comes up with presented before the end of this calendar year. I think it's achievable, but if we want to, I think we have time to work on what we need to, if we need more time. But I definitely want to beat the planning and zoning clock.
Dan, do you know, just out of curiosity, the last planning and POCD cycle?
They're 10-year intervals.
Right, but was the content of the last production relevant to any of the activities or efforts that the town made?
I'd have to dig into it.
Yeah, I mean, it'd be interesting because there's a lot of effort going on to produce this thing, but then is it just a document that goes and collects dust?
I think it,
How does it get implemented? I guess is my
so
question.
when this is a factor, especially when when there's municipal, state, federal grants, that weighs into a point system, that the town is actively, interested in pursuing this course, and this philosophy is in line with what the money we're asking for and this grant's supposed to be for.
Okay,
There's in Thompson, when they were behind on their POCD and I was applying for a state grant for neglected cemeteries, we had to submit this waiver that the town was not compliant, but working on it. And that was sufficient to where it didn't hold up the grant. But for state grants, they're going to be looking at whether the project that you're asking for the money for is in line with the values reflected in the plan of conservation and development. So I think otherwise it does collect dust. And I hate to put it that way.
well, yeah, I mean, I'm sorry to bring that way as well, but I think that, these kind of efforts can just, if they're not on the forefront of people's minds, why would anybody pay attention to it, especially 8 or 9 years down the road?
Sure. No,
But-
and I think, to the people who are interested in and concerned about some of the things that get put into it, it is a document that you can waive, for accountability and say, hey, this is completely contrary to our plan of conservation and development, and use it in that sense. But I think largely the document is neglected until they have to work on it because it's expired. And state monies are attached, kind of go in line with it.
Well, that's kind of where we are now. It's all sort of in a last minute rush. Whereas it
should be an ongoing thing.
Yeah.
And it should have it, I believe, rather than the process be administered through Planning and Zoning Commission, it should be its own committee. And it has been in Woodstock in the past. A representative from Ag Commission hasn't been around a while, but economic development, planning and development, wetlands, historic district commission. I don't see why there can't be just one person of a conservation commission, one person of each commission drafted to form a POCD committee. But right now, the ball is in a planning and zoning court. They did discuss how there was a lot more diversity in these project in the past when there was other commissions more heavily involved. And I think this process is going to get back to that for the next round. I think we're playing catch up on this one.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. It's
I mean, part of the comments we make could say, that, we could reference this as an opportunity for an inclusive process.
well, that's it.
And-
It's more about the quality of the process than the product, because as I say, the product will just go on the shelf and be forgotten until somebody writes a grant or wants to write a grant request, which I think, there's going to be more and more of that coming up.
Onto other items in the agent report. Marla and I stopped by 644 English Neighborhood Road a couple weeks ago to inspect the septic hole that wasn't draining and then had to be redesigned by, this had originally been an inquiry in June. Neighbor walking a dog said this hole's not draining. The septic has been installed. They were waiting backfill, for me and Marla to, go check it out. We couldn't really find evidence of a vernal pool. There was some indications of a high water table. We did find a head wall of an old culvert under a cart path, but it was dry. And we advised the contractor that was present to make sure the culvert remained clear, because you wouldn't want any ponding in that area. I don't know if,
Well,
Marla?
actually, I told him he could remove it.
Yeah,
What was interesting is the site had been so manipulated already by the installation of the septic system, you really couldn't tell what was there before, except when you came to this head wall. It wasn't a head wall, it was a stone culvert. They had, like the culverts that the old wood roads would have. They'd have like a big, large, flat stone, and it would be suspended up over the ground with other stones underneath it holding it up. And that's what it looked like. But in front of it were these couple of really large sedge plants. And it was odd the way they were there. So obviously the water had been standing there at some point in time long enough for these plants to grow to a fairly large size. I mean, they were probably 3 feet tall, 4 feet tall, the sedges. Excuse me, they were not sedges, they were rushes. And and I don't ask me the species of rush, but those are the only 2 plants that looked like, wetland type plants, swampy type plants. And so what appeared to me is that the only drainage that would get to that old stone culvert was sheet flow off the street and going down the hill and into this low spot. And if that culvert was obstructed in any way, shape, or form, then it would pool the water up behind it until it could finally drain through or get absorbed in the ground. So whether or not there was a vernal pool there at one time or not, who knows? It wasn't mapped. The soils had been mapped in the subdivision when the subdivision went through. This area was not identified as containing any wetland soils. Could have missed it, but it wasn't on a drawing, and the wetlands had been delineated. So what I suggested, since they were never delineated, I suggested that because the septic system could be damaged if this old stone culvert, which didn't have much clearance in it, maybe not even a foot of clearance from the bottom to where the bottom of the stone would be, just to remove it and make sure that the water could free flow through there without, piling up behind it, because he had already piled some debris and brush in the area of the old wood road. And I was concerned that that stone culvert could have already become obstructed. So I think he was going to take it out completely. So there would be no blockage potential that would affect the septic system. Just that correction, Dan.
Yep.
I did tell him that he could that my advice would be to take it out. It's not a regulated area. It's not in a regulated area. There weren't any wetlands delineated anywhere near it by the soil scientist, so then it would not be regulated by the commission. Just because it had 2 large rush plants at the inlet of this culvert. That was it. There's nothing else. Sorry to interrupt you.
oh, no, thank you for bringing that into the record here. I did in my report note that it clear and unblocked or removed. Also on that side of town, at the end of English Neighborhood Road, Ide Perrin Road, is Solar Recreation League. They had asked last month Don Gagnon about dredging the pond. And we requested that they consult with the soil scientists to find a suitable area for the spoils, and to work with DEP, work with an engineer and DEP regarding the dam that they have on that pond. Don Gagnon told me that the board has approved his request to spend money towards this, and he requested names of soil scientists and engineers. I told him, the names of who we've worked with in the past couple of years and referenced the Southern New England Soil Scientist Registry for additional names for him to explore. He said he had tried a couple people and nobody was getting back to him. But and then I referenced area engineering firms that have submitted applications in the past few years. I don't know who he might work with. I know he did ask Margaret Washburn, who's got a lot of local experience in this. My and Marla's replacement in Thompson. She might be busy on this, but she's I guess contacting Don to find out more information.
A suggestion, you could suggest that he try to touch base with the Connecticut Association of Wetland Scientists.
Cause
They might have somebody in their membership that does specifically this kind of work or advice.
I was just on their website today. I'll let him know about that. Elizabeth Murphy of the Crystal Pond Commission, excuse me, asked if she could begin planting in the area behind the completed retaining wall over by the pavilion and retaining wall that the commission saw. The retaining wall is complete. I gave her permission to remove the silt fence and begin planting. They showed me pictures of the retaining wall and the silt fence. The silt fence never really got any sedimentation to it. That wall seems to be functioning as intended. See, I inquired with Deep Dam Safety about Mr. Bentley's berm. Dan Lazanuski and Anna Laskin, as of August 22nd, they have no new updates from Mr. Bentley or an engineer representing Mr. Bentley. Kind of just keep asking every month, and it's kind of the same story. Marla, do you know if they're, how they work on their with their timelines? Can they just keep kicking a can? And
Yep, that's what they'll do. They don't have much for staff, so, and they've already got at least 3 high hazard dams that are in unsafe conditions, or 4 of them, I can't remember. And this is not a big issue with them. This is small potatoes. Oh,
I'll keep asking.
Yep. It's squeaky wheel gets the grease.
Sure. Another state agency issue. The commission had asked me to see how DOT works in coordination with DEP or other agencies when choosing sites or vendors for staging locations, specifically about compliance with local permitting, site plans, or what kind of review is conducted. And Dan McBride forwarded my inquiry to George Santos, who's the District 2 manager, to come up with a reply. I don't have that reply as yet.
And what caused this issue to be raised?
So I think it was 197, property G, Michael G, GEE. DOT is staging catch basins on his property. It has used his property in the past. Neighbor across the street thinks, bad or fill there's being fill placed. Mr. G says no, there's no fill. The state says there's no fill. It's just these catch basins. There has been fill.
Yeah.
And there's English Neighborhood Brook that runs through the north section of this property outside of the fill and staging area. But there are also delineated wetlands which might be within 100 feet. So Mr. G says he's not bringing in fill. That it's just the catch basins, but we know that historically there has been fill placed on that site, and you could kind of tell that from aerial and contour information that it's not natural.
Dan, about
Yeah.
8 years ago, this issue was raised, and Diane Flood, who was a commissioner at that time, went out and looked at the site, and she came back to the commission and said that there weren't any wetlands there. She wasn't a soil scientist or anything. And that was the first complaint that we had gotten on that site. And I do know that Phil has come in since she went out and looked at it. I mean, I drive by there all the time when I'm heading towards Hartford to go to Hartford, and I suspect that whoever is bringing the fill in, it's going to be hard to tell. I think the best thing to do is to identify where the regulated area is, and then notify the property owner and the DOT as to what the jurisdiction of the commission is with respect to that property.
That's a good plan there. And I'll reach out to all parties on that.
Would it be of use to document existing conditions and date it? And just note it?
Absolutely.
The problem is he doesn't have the right to enter onto private property.
Can
That's
still,
private property.
can still do it from the road?
No, not really.
Yeah,
You have to
yeah.
do it from aerial photography. You could do some of that.
I hope to request, a tour for Mr. G.
Okay.
Just to sort this out. You always ask, never walk anywhere without on private property without their permission. But I have Mr. G's phone number. I can definitely reach out to him. And still also follow up with DOT and DEP. On to an enforcement matter. I did send a notice today for construction of a shed within the regulated area, 85 Loyola Road. There's also a zoning issue with this. They put it right on the property line. So the comment from the neighbor was he's just gonna do it, and then if he has to move it, he said he'll move it. But this has already been built. We're gonna have him move it to a compliant location and get after the fact permitting, because wherever he places it is going to be within the regulated area. This is off in a property that has frontage on Quasit.
But they don't have a residence there, do they?
There is a residence, 85. It was a small house that was torn down and a much bigger house put up in its place very recently. I think within
Okay.
the last few years.
Did we have a permit for that?
Yeah, there was
approval?
permitting for it. There, I think it had to been during Ashley Stevens's time. But I did find permitting for the new house. It's it was a long Polish name. I could call it up on our GIS very quickly.
There should have been a site plan for that. It should have been done by an engineer, I would have thought.
Yeah, it did go through the commission, with one of my predecessors. It could have also been Tina LaJoy. But this shed, he did not apply for any zoning or wetlands permitting.
Do you have the number for the prior permit?
No. I'll have to do some research in the office tomorrow. I did find it in my permit spreadsheet, though.
Yep. And that should give at least the permit number or the app file number. Because I don't know if we were doing Zoom at that time when Ashley was here. That was,
Yeah, it's the property on the screen. different levels here. There
Yeah,
is now
yeah.
a new
That's
house
two
here.
thousand sixteen when there's no building at all. Right.
Okay. Oh, yeah, this is, this shed that he installed or built is right on the property line of, his neighbor to the south
Mhm,
in this general area.
mhm.
And it's definitely, easily within the regulated area.
You're,
So I'll, let, the commission know how, in response to this, this would be work in the upland, a wetlands agent approval type of application. I'd want to see what the contours are over there, which are somewhat strong.
I think
Um,
the Lake District don't they even have 10-foot setbacks on the side?
he said it was on the property line,
It's built on the
the
property
zoning
line,
violation.
so it's also, yes.
Yeah. Should be at least a 10-foot, possibly 20-foot setback.
No,
side.
it's they share a fence and you see it popping up right over the fence,
Oh.
right on the property line. It's there's two permitting issues.
Well, what size is the shed?
Um,
I think if it's 8 by 10, it's okay. If it's no
it can,
more than
the setback can be reduced to 3 feet if it's under 100 square feet.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's typically for things like bus shelter or a garbage corral.
firewood.
Yeah, I'm pretty. The structure isn't of a size that requires the building permit, which is 200 square feet, but it's definitely it definitely requires the 10-foot
Okay.
setback. And let's see what else I had here. I'll be taking a couple days off later this month, the 23rd and the 24th. The CACWIC conference is fast approaching. You can't register for it yet, but it's going to be November 16th. Some other notes, Tracy's going to be out of the office next month for a week. And
Where is the Cacuic going to be? That
Bristol.
Bristol, yep. I think that's
Oh.
where we had it last year.
Yeah.
Over.
Oops.
I don't know what that is. I'm not shopping for any sandals, so I don't know what that is. At the Bristol Event Center. I think that they've hosted it there before. Very nice, large hotel conference venue. But we are up to date on our CACWIC membership that we split with the Conservation Commission. And if anybody is interested in attending, mark your calendar. And when registration is open, I'll make sure anybody who wants to go, we can figure out how to make that work.
what day is that? November,
November 16.
which is a Saturday.
Yeah, Saturday. And Casio session 2 is going to keep me out of the office October 21st through the 25th. So Stu, that means our ZBA quarterly meeting.
You won't be there?
I won't be there. But I'm pleased that they offered this session 2 up so quickly after session 1. I'll be able to hopefully, it looks like topics that I have more experience with than the first session. I'm looking forward to this one.
We're scheduled for October 7th back on that? ZBA?
Yeah, ZBA October 21st.
Oh, October 20th. Maybe we can do a special meeting.
Yeah, that's something we could do. Absolutely. The week prior to that, I think there's a Monday holiday, so it'd probably be the week following.
Okay,
So it's session 1, session 2, then a capstone report. And I could be wrapped up with this Casio within, maybe 6 months, calendar time. And, that'd be nice to just, have that finished up. But that's all I have, in this report. If there's anything missing or you have questions about anything, happy to take any questions, right now or by email if, your thoughts come later. Happy to
Dan,
answer them.
at your next meeting, at the next meeting, could you include in the agenda under administrative business the notice of inquiry that you sent and the status of that
Okay,
under the administrative business?
Dan, I have to give you kudos on this. Good job. Thank you for your efforts, because it helps keep things clear with everybody and us. I feel better knowing that the information is accessible. So thank you.
you're welcome.
your-
I appreciate it. Thank you, Stu. I don't know where I found this format of this meeting page with the hyperlinks, but I'm glad Civic Plus has this capability, which the town website is through this Civic Plus. Because I think it's very useful for me when we're in the course of a meeting to go back a few years if we have a question on a prior approval, to have it quickly accessible remotely. There's a limitation on file attachments totaling 100 megabytes per page, but we haven't gotten to that point. And I mean, there might have been one time or two that I had to compress some documents a little further to make them all fit, but I think this has been an easy way to share information and transparently. So I appreciate it. I'm about efficiency, and this has streamlined some processes for me. But that's all I got, and thank you guys.
That's
Thank
a
you,
lot.
Dan.
That's all you get?
It's been a busy month.
Good job.
Thank you.
As Forrest Gump
Alright.
would say, that's all I have to say about that.
Okay, let's, we don't have any citizens, I believe, for citizens' comments. I do have a few a question and a comment. First comment is that, Mr. Grenia's field was paid last week, so if there may be some digging done there. He did fill in where he started the pond there previously, but now that the field's clear, I'm sure he's probably looking to itch to get out there. And so if you hear something, it's time for him to, the hay's gone, so he can see what he's doing.
Well,
And the
as
other
follow
one-
up, can I interrupt you? I drove by there today and I noticed that that he did a cut through the levee between his field and the Muddy Brook, so that now it'll be more freer draining. And I thought that's what he was gonna do anyways, but I wasn't sure whether or not that's what the commission authorized. But there is an opening now. The levee.
Yeah, I'm not sure whether that was, I don't believe we authorized that. I'd have to go back and look, but I believe there was a drain in that area anyways. He might have just shaped it up a little bit.
Yeah, that's what I thought he did. Yeah.
Yeah, but he will probably be scraping in the field.
We'll see.
Yeah.
I have a
And
question.
the other
I do have a question on citizen comments, if I may. in regards to, or it connects to the earlier topic with the beaver dam. What, who would, if there is an authority having jurisdiction on that, with wildlife as it pertains to wetlands? For example, like the beaver dam, it could, I mean, I've seen beaver dams create huge ponding,
Mhm.
and that obviously has an impact. What is your experience? What typically,
It's an act of God.
okay. All right. So there's really nothing that can be done.
What do you
If-
mean? To
well,
remove
I
the
mean,
dams?
Yeah, can you remove the dam, or is it
Yeah,
done there?
you get approval through the Wetlands Commission, you can do it.
Oh, okay.
Problem is there's sometimes catastrophic failures of these dams.
Mhm.
They had that at Trailwood in Hampton twice, I think last year or this year. So the downstream neighbors got flooded out and all kinds of debris in their yards.
I saw a 50 acre impoundment down in, I want to say it was in Baltic.
Mhm.
And the beavers had eaten themselves out of house and home. And apparently they had left the area. And the dam failed catastrophically. And it went down through a narrow gorge, blew out a much tinier dam, and then blew out an old stone road crossing. Actually, it was a town road, and blew the whole thing out because it was a 50 acres of about 3 feet high of water. Just a wall
Wow.
of water came pouring out all at once. So when it unraveled all at once. Yeah, so it can happen.
Good thing no one got hurt.
Yeah, nobody did. I'm sorry to interrupt. Go ahead.
No, I'm just wondering if that's something that ever comes before
Yes.
before us like today.
Yes,
And so we would recommend that.
depends. Depends on the conditions, depends on the situation.
Hmm,
We don't, each situation is different.
mhm.
Different threats, different impoundments, different concerns. So you'd have to look at them separately to see what the concern is. And how they're
Well,
gonna
there's a
reach
site-
it.
But for today,
There's a site-
the concern was today that his, that water would be damaging to his tree farm.
Yeah, well, yes, and yeah, I didn't think it was a significant damage, but if
Yeah.
left undone, the dam could have built up over time and enlarged over time and clearly caused a problem. So it's better to nip it in the bud
Yeah,
before it becomes a major problem, but the damage was not very significant at this point in time, a couple of small trees.
yeah.
But anyways, sorry. Go ahead, Bill.
No,
I'm
I'm just,
That's just a side comment. There's a site in West Woodstock where was like a causeway that kind of created a dam and a swamp where the beavers built up on one side of it, on the pond side of it, and the wetland side of it. And the DEP took it out and they built it up again. DEP took it out. They might have done it 3 or 4 times. The beavers finally say, okay, we're building it on the other side. The road's gone now. So it's just sitting there waiting to break. So you can't cross that way to get to the other side now. It was a old, probably discontinued town road,
Mhm.
but the state owns it, the DEP is in charge of that, so. So the other thing I had is, Marla, are you gonna be here for next meeting,
Yes,
October 7th? Okay,
it will be.
so I know you often go away, so,
Columbus Day is very early this year, as was Labor Day, so I'll be back in town because I come back on Columbus Day weekend. So yes, I'll be here.
okay,
We're on the 7th though, aren't we, the following week?
the 7th.
October 7th.
Yeah,
the
I should be
first,
here.
Unless we changed it.
Isn't the 7th Columbus Day or Indigenous Persons Day?
14th.
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah, okay. Yeah, well, I'll be here.
Okay. All right, I'm just gonna I hate to belabor this, but I wanted to make a quick comment about when you're seeding a new area, maybe you all know this, but ideally you'd want to have a grass seed mix. And you would want to have some annual ryegrass first, because that would come up very quickly and establish some root systems. And then you would want to also have some perennial ryegrass that would continue after the ryegrass. And then for whatever you wanted after that, you would probably, for a mix or a finer grass, you would want to have that afterwards. That would be not your Kentucky bluegrass or fescue or whatever would be not what you would want to have to stabilize the grass initially. There are landscape mixes and conservation mixes that are kind of geared towards that. The contractors mixtures are usually mostly ryegrass, and they're kind of just garbage grass to get something going. So that's the short story of that.
That's helpful.
Yeah. So does anybody else have any other questions or comments? So is Dottie, are you our permanent recording secretary, or are you still acting? You permanent?
I think I unmuted it. Did I unmute?
Yes.
Yes,
Uh-huh. No, I am not necessarily permanent. The issue was that Amy Monahan had a conflict the same night of the week each month. And so I said I
Okay.
would fill in for a while. So the answer is technically no. Not permanent.
Okay, because when I was looking at the town website, your name was there and it didn't say acting or anything like that. So I was just curious.
It should say acting, and I actually needed to check with Crystal because there's only Amy Monahan and she's doing every single board and commission and there's no backup. So if she gets the flu, the town's going to be sunk. So I'm not volunteering to be that backup, but there should be a person in my shoes here tonight who is a backup and can fill in for the other boards and commissions if needed.
Yeah. Okay, well, thank you very much for continuing to fill in. We appreciate it very much, the work that you do.
Thank you. I enjoy watching what you do. So thank you. Good night.
Yeah. All right, does anybody else have any other comments?
I move to adjourn.
I second.
Okay. We have motion by Marla Butts, second by Stuart Peasley to adjourn. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. No opposed and no abstain, so the meeting is adjourned at 9:37 p.m. Thank you very much, everybody. We went through a lot of stuff that I wasn't anticipating tonight, so it was very good. Okay,
Thank
have
you.
a good evening. Thank you
See
very
you
much.
next month.
good to see you all. See you next
Good
month.
night.
Thank you, everybody.
Good night.